Tonight, shocking political news. Andrew Furey resigns as Premier of Newfoundland and Labrador.
It is with a heart full of pride and hard-earned confidence in the future of Newfoundland and Labrador that I must now move on.
Furey made the surprise announcement this afternoon, saying he's stepping down to spend more time with family after 4.5 years in office.
This is CBC Here and Now.
Good evening and welcome to Here and Now. We begin tonight with news that came as a huge surprise to many. Premier Andrew Furey announced earlier today that he will step down. Terry Roberts joins me now live here in the studio. So Terry, big day came out of left field. What can you tell us about this resignation?
Well, I guess to put it mildly, right off the top, this was a political stunner. It really was. A very, very small circle of people knew this was coming today. The Premier and his wife, Alison, made this decision over the Valentine's weekend. It started with a very vague news release at noon. The 14th Premier of Newfoundland and Labrador would be addressing the media at 2 o'clock. Speculation about what was happening began to grow inside the lobby of Confederation Building. Dozens of puzzled bureaucrats were asked to gather. Then Liberal MHAs started to arrive, the Premier's parents, and then the Premier himself, accompanied by his wife, Dr. Alison Furey, and their 3 children.
It has been a wild and unexpected journey right from the start.
And then the big news. Not an election call or a tirade over U.S. tariffs, as some had speculated, but a resignation. After nearly 5 years as Premier, Andrew Furey, the surgeon turned politician, announced he was stepping aside.
As a family, we've decided that as exciting as it is for a potential another election, we could not commit to another full term, which would not be fair to you. You deserve and should demand that honesty and full commitment from all who pursue your trust.
An emotional scene as the Premier thanked his family, his surprised Liberal colleagues, lamenting how quick the years have passed, how much his children have grown, and how far the province has come under his leadership.
I feel that what we have accomplished together will no doubt be a rock-solid foundation for our province moving forward.
From a deal with Quebec for Churchill Falls hydropower that Furey says will bring billions to the province, to affordable daycare and transformations in the healthcare sector, Furey boasted that a province once written off as bankrupt and without a future was on a good path, but that he could not commit to another term in office and that he will return to the operating room.
I love helping people of the province individually fix their broken bones, help them learn to walk again, fix their shoulders, fix their knees, see them on the streets.
Furey is departing at a tumultuous time in U.S.-Canada relations, with President Donald Trump threatening punishing tariffs, musing about Canada becoming the 51st state. An untethered Furey unleashed a blistering attack on Trump, calling him erratic, bonkers.
The guy's cracked. Maybe I can speak more freely now, but he wakes up one morning and says something, water, cars, tomorrow it's going to be on tuna, who knows, it's just, that's how erratic and confusing it is.
But the word family kept coming up today, and Alison Furey praised her husband.
I'm feeling a little bit of relief. I'm feeling a little bit of sadness and nostalgia, and I think our future is bright. I think he's left this place in a better spot than he found it, and we're very proud of him. The pressure and the weight of this job is felt deeply in our household, and he has been away, and our kids have grown up in front of our eyes, and it's time for us to get back to being a unit of 5.
The Deputy Premier found out shortly before the public announcement that Furey was resigning. She called him an outstanding leader.
The impact of his leadership will be seen for generations in Newfoundland and Labrador, in what he's done in health, what he's done in education, what he's done for the improvement of our finances in the province.
The energy that we have is the energy the world.
So what comes next? Well, a leadership race. Furey says he will stay on until a successor is named. Now, it's not clear yet how that will unfold. As for a provincial election, that's still anyone's guess. Furey was also asked about his political future, and Carolyn, he says he's done with elected politics, at least for now.
Okay, interesting, Terry. Thank you so much. Sounds like that door might still be open in the future. Well, reaction to Furey's resignation is also coming from his political opponents. The provincial NDP leader says the announcement came as a shock, especially given it's 1 week before the U.S. tariffs are expected to come into effect.
I don't know if there is a good time right now in any way, shape, or form. I would assume, though, that there will be a leader chosen, and the premier is staying on until that process is figured out. So we've still got in the immediate term for the province to make sure that the interests of Newfoundland and Labrador, the interests are protected. So it'll be uncertain times is the best way I can describe it, and a bit unnerving. I also know that this job puts a tremendous stress on the family. That's a decision he's had to make, and one I would say he's made with his family in mind and with their support as well.
Now, the PC party leader wasn't available for an interview today, but Tony Wakeham released a statement saying that, quote, public service requires dedication, and I recognize the commitment Andrew Furey has shown to our province. While we may not have always agreed, I respect anyone who takes on the responsibility of leading our great province. Well, the news also sparked plenty of reaction among the public. On the West Coast, shoppers shared what they thought of Furey's resignation and what they hope to see in his successor.
Oh, I'm in shock. Yeah.
Surprising, I guess. I'm not aware of it, actually, so it's first I heard of it.
Well, I'm surprised.
I think he's done a pretty good job. I've admired him, and I've never really been unhappy with him. He's probably not the best speaker, but sort of controlled and very with it. And I think he worked hard, for our province. And I think we'll miss him.
I don't know what's going to become of it, because just every day it's worse and worse and worse, and don't matter who gets in there, it just don't make no difference. But most of this trouble now is, we know where it's coming from. It's coming from the States. Back in Danny's days was the best for me, right, that I can see.
I didn't hear it, but I'm so glad. Well, because he's just like Trudeau, and I don't like Trudeau.
Lower taxes, lower power rates. Everything has gone sky high, so it's hard to live. I don't think it's not his problem. Like, it happened on his watch, so I don't think it's not his problem. So he never started it. So when it comes down to that, I think that the next premier can address it.
Well, listen to the people more, you know what I mean? Answer more to people's concerns and be more for the people.
Okay, we'll return to this story later in the program, but for now, let's turn to some health news. An estimated 6.5 million Canadians are without access to a family doctor or nurse practitioner. There are a lot of problems in primary care, but there are solutions underway as well. As part of a new series called The Cure, Heather Gillis takes a look at what some provinces and territories are doing to find a remedy to the primary care crisis.
Kristen Walsh knows firsthand how hard it is to live with multiple chronic conditions and not have a family doctor. Last year, she says she spent $2,000 out of pocket to see a nurse practitioner, something not covered in her province.
And then there was a point where I had a lot of edema, like leg swelling, so I was going like almost every week to see, like, has the swelling improved with the medication change, or do I need to make another change? And every visit is a subsequent cost, so it can get very costly.
She's far from alone. A new report from Health Canada says this country is 23,000 family doctors short.
Hi, Joanne.
To fix the problem, the provinces have been investing more.
This payment model for family doctors will...
2 years ago, BC introduced a new payment model to bump family doctor pay from about $250,000 up to $385,000 a year. The province says it since attracted 1,000 new doctors.
Which means that the capacity in the system, in terms of how many patients can I look after, there hasn't really been a change with the new payment model.
Now, this doctor and primary care researcher says it is time to focus on improvements to team-based care, connecting more patients with existing doctors. On the opposite coast, Nova Scotia is launching a physician assessment centre of excellence to get more internationally trained doctors working.
What we're trying to do here is to develop a better, quicker, reliable, safe way to identify competent physicians.
It could add up to 40 new doctors a year, drastically cutting assessment time from 18 months down to 12 weeks, with trainees seeing patients who don't have primary care. In Yukon, about 4,000 people don't have a family doctor. In Whitehorse alone, the Medical Association expects 40% of doctors will leave or retire in the next 5 years, making a bad situation worse. So they're planning a new residency program by 2027.
Essentially, the hope is that we would have the ability to train family doctors locally here, because currently there is no option to do that.
In Ontario and BC, new medical schools are opening up. In other provinces, schools are expanding and some are adding additional seats, but new doctors won't graduate for years. And Kristen Walsh says change can't come fast enough.
We're seeing people slip through the cracks every day.
Heather Gillis, CBC News, St. John's.
Well, some Newfoundland Power customers say they're confused by their electricity bills lately. One West Coast resident is speaking out about the cost that keeps rising even after she took steps to reduce her consumption. The CBC's Hilary Johnson brings us that story.
For Sharon Evans, rising costs these days are a concern, especially when it comes to her power bill. Since she bought her Pasadena bungalow in the late 80s, her bills have steadily crept up. Even after she installed more cost-efficient heat pumps, she hasn't seen much relief.
I watch the light bills and I watch the kilowatts. I'm like a hack over that stuff. I mean, we're working very diligently for our incomes, and we don't want to just throw our money away. So everything that's surrounding your heat and these necessities are gone through the roof. I don't know what else I can undo, how I can conserve more.
Evans isn't the only Newfoundland Power customer paying close attention to her bills, even more so with a potential rate hike in July. But the utility says there's a few factors to keep in mind.
We did have a 7% increase in August. So if the bill goes up, it might look, your December bill might look a little more than it was last year, maybe even for similar usage, right? But when you think of December, look at your usage, look at the activities of your home. So usage and weather are two things to look at.
The company submits a general rate application to the Public Utilities Board about every 3 years, and that includes financial data to help set customer rates. In its latest application, Newfoundland Power asked for a 10.6% increase, which the PUB rejected, saying that's too high. And while it's unclear by how much rates will rise in the summer, an increase will likely come.
We're the lowest in Atlantic Canada. That doesn't really matter to the individual and family who's trying to make ends meet, especially when other necessities, the cost of that are increasing. To that I would say that we're empathetic.
Power says there are many things customers can do to limit their power use. This includes budgeting tools as well as rebate programs. As for customer Sharon Evans, she says consumers need to continue holding large companies accountable to ensure no one gets left behind. Hilary Johnson, CBC News, Corner Brook.
Oh, we've certainly got some weather on the way. Some milder air moves in as we head through tonight and then continues for a good chunk of the rest of the week for at least the eastern half of the island. Let's take a look at the weather on the way. Significant rainfall expected for those of us in eastern Newfoundland. Also, some winter storm warnings in effect for the Green Bay, White Bay area. Then we've got another warm-up coming by the time we get into Friday. I'll break it all down for you coming up a little later.
Now to some news from the courts. A St. John's man is facing 8 additional charges of sexual violence after a new complainant came forward to police. Tony Humby has pleaded not guilty and is already scheduled to go to trial next week on 72 counts of sexual offenses involving youth. There are now a dozen complainants in total. Humby's co-accused, Bruce Escott, has pleaded guilty and will be sentenced next week. The 2 men were neighbors in the east end of St. John's. The agreed statement of facts in Escott's case allege they worked together to sexually exploit vulnerable youth for nearly 2 decades. The Federal Department of Fisheries and Oceans has released its snow crab stock assessment, and it's a bit of a mixed bag. DFO considers the population healthy in the zones on the south and southeast parts of the island. Meantime, the population is considered cautious in the zones north of Bonavista Bay. That includes areas off the coast of Labrador, White Bay, and Notre Dame Bay. The department says warming ocean temperatures and a larger number of small crabs could make for a decline in commercial-sized crab in the coming years. We have another update from the grounded ship near Lark Harbour. According to the latest update from the Coast Guard, there still appears to be no pollution from the MSC Baltic. Crews are still assessing the vessel and say there are significant holes in the hull. The ship appears to have settled on the seabed and is stable at this time. Tests have confirmed that almost 2 million litres of heavy fuel and marine gas oil are on board. A Coast Guard vessel with spill response equipment is on standby should the situation change. The salvage team is still assessing what the next steps will be. The cargo vessel ran aground close to the shoreline off the island's west coast on February 15th. Well, the 3rd anniversary of Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine was yesterday, and since early 2022, over 4,000 Ukrainians have arrived in this province. For the many children among the refugees, staying in touch with their home country's culture and language can be a real challenge, but one St. John's school is helping.
We are proud to be Ukrainian. We are proud to be a part of the Newfoundland community.
Natalia Harasimchuk. We are teaching history and Ukrainian language here mainly. We have school on Saturdays, every Saturday, and our school works from 9:30 till 2. So children come here to learn. So we are reading, teaching them. Some small children we are teaching how to read. So we have some educational classes, historical lessons, cultural also. We are very proud that our Ukrainian community is joining together in order not to forget Ukrainian language, because our children integrate here in this society very quickly. Because they are small, it's easier for them, but all of us want not to forget our origin.
For our youngest children, which came in Canada in the age 4 or in the age 5, we can see that they start forget the language. They start forget how to read or how to write. So here we give them opportunity to learn and to be part of Ukrainian community.
Tell me about the song that you were singing together.
The song was about Ukrainian language, and our children were singing, dancing, and enjoying, having fun. So we are making a small video in order to show Ukrainian culture, Ukrainian language, and how our children enjoy studying here. That's why we are working here to help our children not to forget their language and to know their history and origin.
This is a moment where you need political stability, and we're getting the opposite of that.
Well, one political science professor says Andrew Furey's resignation comes at a time of national and global political turmoil. Well, we have some very messy weather coming tomorrow, Ashley.
Yes, warm up for some of us and then some wintry weather for other parts of the province. Let's take a look at where we're sitting right now because this is going to change. Currently sitting at about 0 degrees in St. John's with a wind chill feeling more like -6. But Winterland's already up to 2 degrees, even Port aux Basques +1, 2 degrees in Corner Brook. And we are going to see some milder air move in as we head through tonight and into tomorrow, really, for the eastern half of the island. Temperatures up across Labrador still sitting around -11 for Lab City, but your temperature in Mary's Harbour +1 at the moment. So if we take a look at what's going on, there are some showers just to the south now working their way across the Avalon. We'll expect that to continue as we head through tonight. And then zoom way out and head towards just off the east coast there of the States, another area of low pressure getting itself together, and that is the system with some much milder air that is prompting the watches and warnings that are happening across the island. So quite a swath. We've got rainfall warnings from Gander all the way through to the Avalon and then along the south coast towards Burgeo. A winter storm warning in effect for the Green Bay White Bay area. And then the Northern Peninsula, Grand Falls, Windsor, and the Bay of Exploits all under a winter storm watch at the moment because at the end of the day it will depend on where this system tracks than what we see. Also a wind warning for the eastern Avalon. Now blowing snow advisory in place for southeastern Labrador, and that will be the story Wednesday night into early Thursday as the system continues to track north. So expect those temperatures to warm up for the east, 1, 2, 3 degrees through the overnight tonight. Labrador, you're going to hang on to that cold air, especially in Lab City, -28 tonight. And then those temperatures for the Northern Peninsula even will sit into the minus single digits, and you're going to stay there, which is why you are under that winter storm watch, because temperatures are going to stay quite cold as we head through the day tomorrow. And really, we will see some of those cold temperatures as far as the Green Bay, White Bay area as well. So let's take a look at what's going to happen as we head through the night tonight. Those showers, very brief showers working their way east across the Avalon as we head through tonight. Then tomorrow morning, by the time we get into tomorrow morning, we'll start to see some of that snow for the Northern Peninsula, Green Bay, White Bay area, and then the Avalon and really southern areas of the island. We'll see that rain start early tomorrow morning. It is just going to intensify as we head into the afternoon. We can see that rain snow line at this point looks like it'll be around between Gander and Grand Falls, Windsor through the afternoon. Areas like Corner Brook, even southern areas of the island will likely see some of this snow change over to rain briefly in the afternoon as the system continues to track north. Now, take a look at this. By Friday afternoon, or rather Wednesday afternoon and early evening, we could be getting into some of the heaviest rainfall that we see, 5 to as much as 15 millimeters falling in 1 hour. And that will continue as we head into the evening hours. And eventually we'll see that cold air move back in, change that precipitation back over to snow for the west coast and parts of central as well before ending as we head through the evening hours. So definitely a stormy afternoon expected, along with some gusty winds for the Northern Peninsula. And then again around that Green Bay, White Bay area before we see that end into Thursday. How much rainfall are we talking about? A good swath of between 30 to 50 millimeters is possible. Areas like the Burin Peninsula, southern Avalon may see between 50 to 80 millimeters of rain. And again, this will be accompanied by some strong winds. So it is very important that your storm drains are free of snow and ice so that the melt will have somewhere to go along with that rain. And then ensure that your sump pumps are working. That's also something very important. Like I said, we will see some gusty winds through the evening on Wednesday, gusts as high as 100 kilometers per hour for the Avalon. And then we watch the Northern Peninsula, and your winds will be strong through the evening as well before we see that taper off into the morning hours. Now, As far as the snowfall goes, a good chance that we'll see somewhere between 15 to 20 centimeters in the Green Bay, White Bay area. Otherwise, between 10 to 20, much less if you see some of that rain move in, especially for the west coast. And then we may see as high as 5 to 10 centimeters on the back side of that system for parts of central areas like Gander. But again, most of eastern Newfoundland will see this fall as rain. Temperatures tomorrow are going to be significant, 3 to 8 degrees. Really, most of us will be seeing those temperatures above zero with the exception of the northern peninsula. Then Labrador, you're going to hang out in the minus single and double digits. I'll get into the long-range forecast coming up a little later in the show.
Thanks so much, Ashley. Well, returning now to today's news that Premier Andrew Furey will step down. For one political strategist, Furey's sudden resignation has also come as a surprise. Charlie Byrne is Director of Global Public Affairs, a national government communications firm. And in conversation with the CBC's Andrew Nichols earlier today, he said stress related to U.S. tariff threats might have had an impact on Furey's decision. Here's part of that conversation.
The Premier had a trip to Washington a few weeks ago with some other premiers, and he came back and, you know, he said in the media he thought it was chilling, and he wasn't being dramatic. That is what he thought. He was definitely, I think, shook up by that. I think a lot of the other premiers as well. And the reality is that Canada is now going to be dealing with a very unpredictable, erratic presidency for 4 years. Did that factor into his decision today? Probably a little bit, but you know, at the end of the day, I think the Premier wanted to serve between 5 and 7 years. He's at the 5-year mark now. If he had run an election and won a majority, which he very likely would have, he probably would have wanted to finish up in a year to 18 months. So I guess, you know, it all kind of aligned. So I would say that had a little bit to do with it. But it's been frustrating for him over the past few months because it's hard when you're dealing with a government, especially, or anybody who's not really dealing in facts and constantly changing the rules of the game. So that had to be frustrating, and I'm sure it played some role in this.
Yeah, I mean, he sort of, the way he characterized it was that not much, but he said, listen, if this thing was going to be resolved in a month or two, then fine. But he said that's not what's going to happen, in his opinion, that it's going to be years and years of this. And so that means you need to be invested day in and day out, kind of similarly to what we heard from Dennis King, the Premier of Prince Edward Island last week, that this is just, you really got to be in this and in this fight just on a continuous basis. And if you're dealing with, in the words of the Premier, a maniac or someone who's cracked, then you know that's a whole different ballgame. Let's talk though a little bit about Andrew Furey and his legacy, if you will, in terms of there's a lot that's happened over the last 5 years.
Yes. Yeah, there has been a lot that's happened. I mean, you know, he came in during COVID. He actually announced his leadership in February 2020 that he was going to run. The leadership was called off about 3 or 4 weeks later, and then it didn't get decided until, I think, August of 2020. So even his timeline for you know, running in the leadership race, it was extended by, 5 or 6 months before he actually became Premier. He thought he'd probably be Premier in April. It didn't happen. That got extended. So then you had this, you know, healthcare economic crisis that they had to go through. I mean, in Newfoundland and Labrador, across the country, oil, you know, trading at $0 a barrel had a very big effect on our oil and gas industry, which is, you know, probably about 20% of our GDP here, maybe 20% at the time. So that was a big issue to deal with. You had a healthcare crisis. We've had, you know, the war in Ukraine, where the Premier's initiative, the Premier's idea should be noted very clearly that, you know, he had the idea to go to Ukraine, to open an office to attract Ukrainian immigrants to Newfoundland and Labrador. You've had the Muskrat Falls rate mitigation deal. You've had the Churchill Falls deal. We've had the unknown soldier. So there's been a lot that he has taken on over the last 5 years. And if you look at it, really, I mean, it's you know, almost the amount of accomplishments, the amount of things they've taken on. It's something that maybe other premiers haven't been able to do in such a short amount of time. So there was a lot that has happened. They've worked around the clock to get those few things done. And I think, you know, one of the big things that people remember for years and years to come will be that Churchill Falls deal, because the Treasury will essentially, you know, not double, but, you know, you'll have another 20-30% added onto it over the lifespan of that deal.
As long as it goes through. Just very quickly, any concern around that?
I don't think so. Look, I think that, you know, people in Newfoundland and Labrador know this is a good deal because it is. It is a good deal. It's a deal that was negotiated by experts, done very differently than the Muskrat Falls deal. It's been before the public. People have had to have input on it. You have, people that actually know about hydroelectricity and know about energy deals are calling this a good deal. Some people who perhaps don't have the expertise in that area are saying it's not a good deal, but they're not experts. So no, I think at the end of the day, whoever's in government will make sure that this goes through.
Well, now back to our top story. Political bombshell today. Andrew Furey has resigned as premier. He says with an election due in October, he couldn't commit to another full term, so he's opting out early, but says he will stay on until a new leader is chosen. Alex Marland is a political scientist at Acadia University. He joins me now. So, Alex, this was a shocker today. What's your reaction to the premier resigning?
Yeah, it's a bombshell. I'm not aware of people knowing this was coming, and it was a real shock to start getting all these texts from all sorts of people saying this is what's happening. It loosely reminds me of what just happened with Chrystia Freeland stepping down, and it's the antithesis of what happened with Justin Trudeau when everybody was expecting him to leave, or certainly calling on him to do. This is the absolute opposite. This is a case of a premier who's relatively popular, who had a good chance of locking down a majority government in an election this year, who had just signed a major deal involving energy and Quebec to undo all sorts of legacy issues with Churchill Falls. This is a real shock for a lot of us.
How unusual is it for a premier to make this kind of decision? Kind of, I guess the way you just described it, it's almost like he's leaving on a high note.
Yeah, I mean, that's not unusual. We just saw it with Premier King over in PEI. And it does happen. Frank McKenna out of New Brunswick comes to mind. He'd served for 10 years and, left on a high note. To some extent, we could say the same thing with Danny Williams. But the difference is that these things were kind of telegraphed. They were mentioned. There was news coverage that it was coming. It hit people as a shock, but not really in the same way. There was nothing telegraphed about this. Even the way that the announcement came out seemed to be kind of happening very quickly and suddenly, which, invites all sorts of speculation as to why. Why did this happen so fast? What happened? And so I think ultimately it'll be up to the Premier to explain to us whether he can explain properly now or it's going to take years to figure out. Nobody can know these things except for the people in the positions themselves. It is so hard to be a premier. It's so hard to be a politician these days. I don't think people fully appreciate the amount of pressure and strain that they're under. And if they say they're leaving because they have other things they want to do and they've had enough, I believe them.
You just mentioned PEI Premier Dennis King. This comes right in the wake of that. It's been less than a week since he stepped down as Premier. Do you see any connection or any kind of trend here?
Well, it's very unusual to see premiers who are relatively popular, not that far into their mandates. And I mean, they are, but they're not, 10 years in. It's, very unusual to see them leave, and also to leave abruptly. It's obviously unusual to see them do this like this together in a short period of time. It kind of begs the question of what's motivating this. It'll cause a lot of us to wonder if the pressures coming from the United States and all other things that are piling up after the pandemic, it just became too much, which is exactly what Premier Furey is indicating, that just the amount of energy that you need as an individual to move forward is too much to bear.
And you mentioned the pressure from the United States. And what does this mean for this province to have such a major change in leadership when the country is basically on the brink of a potential trade war with the U.S.?
Yeah, well, even more than that, what does it mean for the deal with Quebec? So there's that deal that we need to figure out where that's going. But more than that, you're right. It's the real challenge is that this is a moment where you need political stability. And we're getting the opposite of that. And so if you think of Newfoundland and Labrador, not only will there no longer be a premier who's staying for a long period of time, but we're also looking at a period of change with respect to the Prime Minister of Canada. So right when you need stable leadership is when you're getting the reverse. So I'm not sure what's happening with Liberal leaders these days, but it'll be nice to get some stability, whatever party that's with.
How do you think all of this uncertainty and instability affects the public?
It causes them to worry. At an exact moment when they need calm. It causes them to think about politics when most people on a day-to-day basis don't. And so anytime people are talking about politics, for somebody like me, that's great, you're engaged. But it's not great when you're engaged because you're worried about things. And when you're up against somebody who's as erratic as the President of the United States is, you need somebody who can really, be very calm at the helm. And in many ways, Premier Furey was doing an excellent job, and he's exactly who Newfoundland and Labrador needs in many respects. But now that he's leaving, and he's announced that he's leaving, even though it's not immediate, the reality is that the power of his office is going to diminish, and now everybody is going to see that he can't really advance an agenda, that it's going to fall to whoever is the next leader after him.
And can you walk us through what does happen next here? The Premier says he will stay on until a new leader is chosen. The legislation says that we have to have an election within a year of a new leader being selected. So how will this all unfold? What's the process here?
Yeah, so there's all sorts of people, including me, who are now going and looking at the Newfoundland and Labrador Liberals' constitution. And there is a section in their constitution that says that the executive of the party are the ones who are going to figure out how to move forward. So a lot of it is really open to the executive of the party to figure out all the parameters of the leadership race. So the main things that we know are that what will happen is, and this is going based on past practice, eventually they will have an announcement that will outline when there is going to be the date of a new leader selected, the process for selecting that leader. Then gradually there'll be a lot of speculation about what members of cabinet and others could come forward and put their names on a ballot to potentially become the next leader. And there's a big prize, because if you become leader of the party, you become premier. And then it's a similar situation as what we're seeing at the federal level. You then are going to be facing an election soon thereafter. So you won't have very long to govern unless you manage to win an election. This increases the chances potentially of the PCs mounting a strong election campaign, because it depends who comes out of the next provincial leadership race for the Liberals. And one thing we have to remember is the Liberal Party of Newfoundland and Labrador has been in power just as long as the Liberal Party of Canada, since 2015. And in that time, there's been Dwight Ball and now Andrew Furey stepping down. So the recipe for a time for change is there. And of course, time will tell whether or not we end up with a future premier who galvanizes everyone and excites them, or everybody says it's time for change.
Okay, well, Alex Marland, things just got a whole lot busier on the news front. I didn't think that was possible at this point in time, but thank you so much for your analysis and your thoughts on this. Really appreciate it.
We have to stay calm and carry on, folks.
Good advice. Let's hear more from Furey himself now. After his announcement today, he spoke with reporters, and he began by addressing why he chose to step down as premier.
Yeah, look, it was the balance of family combined with the electoral timing rules and what I felt was best for the stability of the province. Of course, you know, for people watching from away, they might not understand, because Newfoundland is different in that if there is a change of leadership during a sitting government, then there triggers an election within a year. And so, in the balance of our family and what we've given in 5 years is a long time, and then looking forward to the next 3 years, felt that this was the most stable thing to do, the most responsible thing to do for the people of the province.
Are you staying on until another leader?
Yes.
Are you considering a federal election run?
No, not at this time.
Premier, you mentioned tariffs. You talked about the Churchill Falls MOU. I'm just curious about the timing of this decision in the context of tariffs and in the context of that MOU not getting across the finish line yet.
Sure. So first of all, the MOU is across the finish line. The next stage is definitive agreements. But point taken. So with respect to, let me deal with tariffs first. One thing is certain is the uncertainty with President Trump. It's not going to be a 4-day thing. It's not going to be a 4-month issue. This is going to be almost a permanent tenure issue. So we're looking at 4 years of erratic, crazy, bonker behavior by the President of the United States. So I thought that the tariff thing was going to be solved in days, and maybe that would have changed things. But this is going to be a pervasive problem for Canadians for 4 years. And I do think that Canadians have to take it seriously, but not ever let it erode our identity, our unity, and our sovereignty. With respect to the MOU, we tackled the MOU very differently than Muskrat Falls, for example. We made an announcement about it. We put it in the public arena. We had public debate on it. We had public forums on it. Then we brought it to the House of Assembly to see if we should advance it with experts on the floor. On top of that, we set up an independent oversight panel, which has been announced and is functioning now. The Indigenous tables have been set and are functioning now, and the negotiating team is set and is functioning now. So that will be, a year's worth of work. So all of that is playing in the timing of our decision as a family as to what we can commit to moving forward. We're very honored and blessed, and I'd be lying if I said, this comes with very mixed emotions, we've enjoyed every second of this, the ups and the downs. But, in the balance of time and looking at how these guys have grown, it's the right decision right now.
I'll ask that question again. Are you done with elected politics, or even politics where you might get appointed to somebody? Or are you?
No, look, I love politics, but at this point, given their ages, given my family's position, elected politics is not in the immediate future.
What do you hope your legacy will be? What do you want to be remembered for?
Well, when you think about what we've attacked and accomplished in 5 years, I hope the legacy is one of pace. That we accomplished a great deal. And then what I hope my true legacy is not, I think you think I'm going to say Churchill Falls, but it is really, which is transformational. It's not only nation building, it is province changing, generational, will truly change who we are as a people. But for me, I hope my legacy is returning one of our own home and helping close that wound from 1916. I still get emotional thinking about it and talking about it, and it was that's a legacy piece. Someone said to me after it was done, well, you know, that's a once-in-a-lifetime event that just happened. And the answer I said, my response was, it's not a once-in-a-lifetime, that's a once-and-forever, and I was very honored to be given the privilege to do that.
To what degree was volatility south of the border a factor in this decision?
Not much. I mean, once it became certain that it was just going to be continuously uncertain, then that I think allowed us as a family to make the decision with more freedom. If I thought that this was going to be over on March 1st, April 4th, then obviously that would have influenced our timelines potentially a little bit. But it's clear, right? Like the guy's cracked. I mean, maybe I can speak more freely now, but like he wakes up one morning and says something, and water occurs. Tomorrow it's going to be on tuna. Who knows? It's just that's how erratic and confusing it is, which is why I think the Canadian response needs to be calm, cool, measured, balanced, but responsive, standing up to this bully, an erratic bully.
right, time for a look at the long-range forecast. We have all that rain coming here in the east tomorrow. And then there's another warm-up happening later in the week, right?
Yeah, but first we're going to fall down. We're going to see those temperatures drop as we head through our Thursday. But let's take a look at what's going on. So we'll see that area of low pressure through the evening hours. We're going to continue to see some of that heavy rain in the eastern portion of the island, and eventually that will change over to snow before ending Thursday morning. Now, in behind that, we do have some much colder air, especially across the island and then even up across parts of Labrador through the afternoon, but it's going to be fairly quiet through the day. Now, we may see a few flurries start for the western portion of of Labrador, but that's about it. Most of us will just see those clouds on the increase with some snow later on through the overnight period and into early Friday morning. But there you go. Temperatures back down below zero. If there's any standing water or anything on the roads or anywhere on your property, that will freeze by the time we get into the evening hours and then the afternoon on Thursday. And then for Labrador, you're back down well below zero, but -9 for Cartwright, -11 for Happy Valley Goose Bay. And again, we'll see that for the west coast as well of the island with that snow moving in late day. So expect that. We'll see snow to start, but then quickly change back over to rain by the time we get into Friday morning, this time across the entire or most of the island through the day. And then we may likely even see that for the northern peninsula. Depends on the track, but we will see some snow up across parts of Labrador as well, along with another round of some gusty winds right along with it. These temperatures should sit somewhere between 3 to about 8 degrees through the day. Again, northern peninsula above zero, same thing along the strait. But at this point, looks like you should stay on the snowy side of this, most of Labrador as well, with temperatures around Cartwright around -4. You're looking at some blowing snow and some reduced visibilities through the afternoon on Friday for you as well. And then in behind that area of low pressure, we will see those temperatures drop back down below zero. But it is a roller coaster ride. Another system, much weaker though, by the time we get into Sunday, warming things back up above zero. But really from Friday through to Sunday, here in the east anyway, we should see those temperatures stay above zero. You will see a drop in central Newfoundland on Saturday with some flurries possible. For western Newfoundland, you'll see that drop as well. Really dropping Sunday night though, back down to the -teens as our overnight lows. For Labrador, you will see some snow on Friday. Other than that, clearing out and cooling down by the time we get into Saturday and Sunday. And temperatures for Lab West will sit in the -20s and -30s. As your overnight lows for the rest of the weekend. Speaking of Labrador, this is a sunset in the Big Land. Lou shared this great shot with us. It's the Muskrat Falls Access Road there. Thank you for that great photo. I love sunsets and sunrises, just the beautiful colors. If you have any weather photos that you would like to share with us, you can do that by sending them to nlphotos@cbc.ca.
That is great. Thank you so much for that, Lou. So I guess with this rain that's coming, so we're going to get all this rain and then it's going to freeze, but it turn to ice, but I guess it won't be long.
No.
Because it's going to warm up again and rain again.
That's right. It's a mess.
Yeah. It's going to be messy.
Hopefully you enjoyed the winter weather while it lasted.
I like the warmer temperatures though, so
fair
that's
enough.
good.
That's fair.
Okay, well that's it for us. Thank you so much for spending part of your evening with us.
Good night.